Okay, so we have B and T cells. Both are part of your acquired immunity, and their priority is to eliminate pathogens in the system. They kind of have two different ways of doing this. Well, each kind of has their own job. But according to your immune system, they are like the special forces that are brought in when your first line of defenses fail um, in making you better or overcoming the virus or bacteria. So they recognize and identify the foreign antigens. So B cells and T cells come along and they decide whether or not the cell that they've encountered or antigen they've encountered is friend or foe. So they come along and they identify it, and then they do one of two ways to kill it. So your B cells, um, they are created in the bone marrow, and they also mature in the bone marrow, and then they go out into your lymph nodes and fight from there. So they activate to create antibodies called immunoglobulins, and these antibodies bind to a foreign antigen, causing it to inactivate the virus. Um, and then the kind of weird thing about the B cells is that when they devour an antigen, they kind of wear particles of it on the outside of their cell as like a pride type thing. So it's kind of like Vlad the Impaler, who put bodies out in his front yard to ward off his enemies. So that's kind of what your B cells do. They devour the antigen and then they put particles of it on the outside of their surface to ward off anybody else saying, hey, I've already killed you once. Come along and create more and I'll do it again. So these B cells, they have receptors and they bind to the antigens. Once they find the antigen and they bind to it, the B cell multiplies like crazy, doing two things. Um, you have like one of the cells goes out and it multiplies like crazy to kill the antigen or devour the antigen that it has, and the other ones create memory cells so that they remember if they come in contact with it again how they killed it and what it is from the past. Then, on the other hand, you have T cells. T cells are like the mega special forces you bring in, and they're created also in the bone marrow, but they develop and mature in the thymus. So they react directly against an antigen. They travel throughout your body, and they come across cells, and they look at the cell and say, okay, is it a good cell or is it a bad cell? They decipher friend or foe. And even if it is a friend cell, like a B cell, then they look at that cell and say, okay, how many different things do you have on your outside surface that you've killed in the past? And are you being overrun by these things? And then your B cell looks at the T cell and says, yes, please, show me a mercy killing and put me out of my misery because I'm being overrun with these foreign objects and on my outside. So then the T cell comes along and it takes care and does like the so-called mercy killing of the B cell, and handles it that way. Your T cell actually does this by it creates an antigen. They create cytokines that how do you put this? Like they do the multiplying and the memory as well, just like the B cells. So both the B cells and the T cells in your system are created as an acquired immunity because they go out, they find it, they remember what they've done in the past, and they fight it the same way they did in the first place. um, and so they decide if it's friend or foe, and then they kill it. The B cell actually does the weird thing by keeping particles of it on the outside of its surface so it can ward off the enemy in the future, doing the whole Vlad thing. It's kind of weird, but that's what they do. And then the T cell comes along and does the mercy killing. So that's all I got for you on the B and T cell of your immune system. Thanks.